Hello everyone, my name is Lido Tangachan and this is my teach on for HAP671. I'm going to be explaining the assignment Analyze Data. This assignment is divided into two parts. In the first part, we are going to be downloading the data files that we are going to be using. The second part, we are going to be joining these data files to exclude all patients who had at least one admission where diagnosis was hypolipidemia. The bracket contains the ICD code for hypolipidemia. Second step, we are going to be importing data into the server, and then we are going to identify patients with diabetes in the above database. Then we are going to be calculating the average cost of each diagnosis and sort them from most expensive to least expensive and exclude all bills with negative or zero value. Next, we are going to show if men are more likely to have diabetes than women and calculate which month is most likely to have diagnosis reported. And finally, we are going to show 7 errors with our code. So, in order to load or import an Excel file, we are going to be selecting the import data option, after which we are going to be selecting the data source, that is Microsoft Excel. Then we are going to specify the file path. Once file path is specified, we are going to tell which version of Excel we are using. And finally, for destination, we are going to be selecting SQL native client, then our server name, and which database. In this case, it's HAP671. And once everything is done, we just click on finish. Next, for our first question. For our first question, to join and exclude all patients who had admission where diagnosis was hypolipidemia, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be identifying the patients with diabetes. We use on diagnosis column. Then, sorry, we are going to be identifying patients with hypolipidemia. We start by creating a temp table called hashtag temp. This table includes all the modified ICD codes, categories, and combined description. The reason for modification is the data that we have does not have the letter I or a decimal place after three places. Next, we retrieve all the records from the temporary table and we join from the clean table with our temporary table hashtag temp based on matching ICD-9 codes. This part will allow us to see a detailed information from the clean table for specific ICD-9 code. Now, for a second part of analysis, we are going to be identifying patients that have diabetes in the above dataset. For that, we are going to use the count function and select count every patient that has a diagnostic code of 25502. This way, we find every patient that has diabetes, and in our database it is 28 patients. For the second part, we are going to be finding the average cost of each diagnosis sorted from most expensive to least expensive, and we are going to be excluding any value that is negative or zero. For this, we are going to be using the average function, and after that, we are going to be writing a condition where bill amount is greater than zero. We are going to group it by diagnostic code and order it by average bill amount, and we are in the descending order. And we find the diagnostic code 5921 is the most common one, and the average billing amount for that is 5705. Next, we are going to be calculating which month is most likely to have a diagnosis reported. For that, we are going to select the top month from the SVC column as month, and we are going to count the diagnosis as GX number from claims group. Then we are going to order it by DX number decreasing in descending order, and before that we are going to be grouping it by ICD. This way we find out which uh, that month 6 has the highest number of diagnoses reported. And for our final question, we are going to find at least 7 errors in our data. So for that, first we are going to use our temp table. We are going to use count. and distinct categories to find how many times the code has been repeated. Ba- Basically, what errors we are finding is how many times the code has been repeated for the same, and how many times code for the same category, different codes has been used. We are also going to find if there are any nulls, if there are any missing values, nulls, or if the data is not in proper form. For example, to find average, we need the data to be in integer form, but the data is in string form, and hence we find that we cannot find the average. These are few, and we find nulls in each category. We are going to see if there are any codes that are less than one or greater than one if the codes are in two digits. So this is how we are going to find all the errors in our code. And thank you. This was my teachment. I hope this teachment was useful for everyone. Thank you for listening to